Welcome to Sam Gale Talks. I am this time joined by a man who has played for Watford in the Premier League, but also got them promoted with Watford in the playoff final against Leeds, but also has played for Vancouver Whitecaps and played for USA in the World Cup. I'm joined by Jay DeMerit. Jay, thank you for coming on. It's an absolute.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on as a Watford fan myself, and I know people in my family, including my brother, will enjoy watching this. So it's good to have you on.
Well, it's always nice to be part of the Hornet faithful, that's for sure.
We'll obviously start off with the beginning of your life. How was it living in Wisconsin? Is it? In Green Bay.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just like any other kid in the States. I played a lot of sports. I did a bunch of things. I grew up. Wisconsin's kind of a farm town, so I grew up with a cornfield across the street from my house. So, I kind of came from a blue collar background. Both my parents were teachers.
Oh wow!
I played. I played multiple sports. Did a lot of different things. So. I guess you could say I didn't have a football education, but I had a pretty good athletic education.
Yeah, of course.
Again, I think as I got older and started to really, refine which sport I was best at, by the time I was 18 is kind of when football or soccer over here was kind of my choice. But I got better at soccer faster because I was a good athlete. So I guess those other sports really did help me along the way.
Yeah, of course. I was sort of watching your independent film today. I've been actually doing some research up until the very start, and I was just looking at the sort of initial part of your life, sort of in school and in college. You were more predominantly watching American football, and as a family, you were more like soccer wasn't a massive thing. Would you say?
Yeah, and I would say that now is a little bit different.
Yeah, of course.
Because back then they didn't really have much access to, Premier League football.
No.
You know what I mean? Like we would make it, every now and then, or obviously the World Cup every 4 years. But back then in America, there wasn't really a domestic league, so we didn't really have a lot of local teams, or other than the national team, which those games only happen so often.
Yeah, of course. But what sort of child do you think you were? Do you feel like you were more of an introvert or sort of in the middle?
I mean, I would say I've always been on the pretty extrovert, outgoing side. I'm someone that's interested in things.
Yeah.
I come from a design background and art and creativity and that kind of stuff. So, I've been one of those kids that's just curious, and again, and likes to put myself in uncomfortable situations. Obviously, that's why I packed up my bags and moved to England with nothing. So,
yeah.
Because I was kind of someone that always liked to take chances.
And what sort of drew you to watching soccer and playing and getting involved?
I think just like anybody, we're gravitated to things that we like and that we're pretty good at. By no means did I think that I was going to be a pro. When I was 18 and was trying to go to school for university and see if I could play. So again, these were dreams that kind of earned themselves over time. I didn't get drafted after university to the MLS, so the domestic league here in America. But again, what makes you move to England, which is a much better place?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it was just. Again, my ability to want to take risks and put myself into that kind of uncomfortable zone.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was just about, each step of the way or each level you get to, you kind of refocus. I didn't expect to land on English shores and go try out for Chelsea and make it. You know what I mean? I knew I'd have to start at the bottom. And, I think when you start there and then all of a sudden you're playing 12th division football and you're starting to play pretty well, and guys that have played pro before are on the team, and they're going, I think, you could have a shot here. And then, so then that gets you to the next step. And then from there, you get a tryout, and then from there, you actually make the team. And from there, you kind of refocus. So each step of the way, I think, instead of trying to get ahead of myself, I was always trying to recheck myself to make sure I was getting the most of each step of that way, which kind of allows you to create your own springboard into the next level too.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of like being in college, was it after college you sort of joined Chicago Fire? Was it?
Well, it was during. I mean, the Chicago Fire
yeah.
has a reserve team too, and
they
were called the Chicago Fire Reserve. So I was playing for them my last 2 years of college. So again, it was a lesser league, so I wasn't playing pro. I wasn't in the MLS by any shape or form. So it was just more or less. Again, they didn't take a chance on me. So again, they didn't draft me, and then again, that was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Again, I was always of that, and then from there, it was about weighing up opportunities. Again, I had a kid in Chicago that was a good friend of mine that was leaving back to live with his mom in London, in Wembley. So, famously, he asked if I could come along or if I wanted to. And I just thought, you know what? I got to do it the hard way anyway. I might as well do it in a place like, England that can teach me a lot more about the game.
That leads very, very nicely onto my next question. Can you explain to people that haven't sort of known your story, the atlas you and Kieran used to sort of travel around Europe, because it's a fantastic story, I must admit.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first couple months, the plan was just to travel around and see if we could get trials.
Yeah.
We didn't know where we wanted to go yet, but we just knew that I was, again, I had just graduated from university. I wanted to travel, but I also came with purpose. I wasn't there to just mess around. I was there to try to make it pro at football. So again, you might as well throw some adventure in there. So again, I bought an atlas, as we started to prepare for the trip, and we just went to EasyJet and found the cheapest flights around.
Nice.
So we had a flight from London to Amsterdam to Frankfurt to Nice back to London. So that was going to be the trip, and then we'd do some trains in between and go to some other places. So again, we went to all this. We didn't think we could go and walk on to first division teams in those countries. No. So we took any of the teams in the cities we were going to, and we mapped out each city in the second and third divisions of those towns, and we had all their numbers, their scouts numbers, and then their training ground address. So we had all that information, and then we get to each town and we rent bikes. And we would bike out to the training grounds and knock on the door and see if we could get tryouts. And we were in. I'm trying to think the best places we did. Sparta Rotterdam in Holland was a team that they didn't let us trial, but they gave us tickets to a game. We went to Royal Antwerp. They didn't get us a trial, but they let us sit in the stadium for an hour. And then there was one third division team in Germany, and to be honest, I can't even remember what they're called, that gave us just one training session. But that was it. That's all we got of all that stuff. But, again, it's the adventure side of life, too. So, I think we enjoyed that. And I think we always knew that, like, getting a trial in Europe was a little bit harder than getting, starting to just play non-league in England. So I think, again, it was kind of half fun but half purpose, but then none of it really worked out. So, and we ran out of money because we were pretty broke. Yeah. And so that kind of made us head back to England. And that's when, I started playing in the 12th division, South All Town, out by the airport. And that started my English football career.
That's brilliant. Just there's another little bit as well. I remember a little story of obviously you and Kieran had gone up to a team and said, look, we want tryouts. Here's our CVs, because the scout had obviously said to you, I can help you out. And then could you tell me what happened then?
Well, I mean, we could see that there was someone in the room, because it had like those, kind of blind shades, and you can see. And we'd been sitting up there knocking on the door, and nobody was coming to see us. So then we started to get a little bit impatient, and then we saw the shade move again. So then all of a sudden, somebody finally came, and we had our little CVs, and we gave them to them. I said, "Hi, we're here, traveling, and we wanted to just check out if we could get a trial." And they said, yeah, well, hold on, we'll take a look. And so then they came back for like another 10 minutes or for 15 minutes, started knocking on the door again, and so they stopped answering. Like, it was like they wouldn't even come out and tell us no.
Yeah.
So we had the CVs, and they were on Fulham-headed paper. And because the scout that wrote the letter was from Fulham. And so basically we just got pissed off, and we took one of them and said "your loss" on the back and wrote it in big letters and tucked it under the door, and Kieran came and drop kicked the door, made this big noise, and then we hopped on our bikes and took off.
That's amazing.
It was very kid-like. It's very kid-like, but certainly part of the fun and the adventure.
I mean, if they're going to waste your time, it's always good to give back, isn't it?
It would be an interesting story to try to find out who was in that office that day and what would have happened.
But after that, was there any sort of moment where you thought, oh, I'm going to have to go home and tell my parents it hasn't worked?
Yeah, it was that first summer. I played pretty much a season of non-league, and again, I didn't have enough money to stay for the months that we had off between the off season. So I went back home so I could make some more money and train and keep playing with the kind of small division, 4 teams in the U.S.
Okay.
But there was just something inside me that kept pulling me back, and it was just that year of non-league, I went from 12th division to now having tryouts at the end of the year for Oxford and Shrewsbury. For me, so I was seeing there was good signs of it. You know what I mean? I knew I was improving, and I knew that if I gave it one more shot, I think I could get another opportunity. And that was when I talked to my Southall manager, who was then moving to Northwood, and he said, "Hey, we got Watford in a preseason friendly coming up in a couple weeks. He says, if you come back, you should come and train with us here." And so that's kind of started that whole story where when I came back, I was ready. That was with focus on the Watford game. I didn't know that they'd put the first team out and that they were actually looking for center backs. Those are the things that, I think time and serendipitous energy works. But it was that opportunity that I was prepared for. But then, I had to play well too, which I think kind of goes around the lines of, making the most of your opportunities. And, I was able throughout most of my career to be able to do that because I didn't have a lot of opportunities. I had very few. So, when you come from that story, you have to be ready for them and then make the most of them when they actually come.
It's actually quite interesting as well because it seemed, not that I know firsthand, but people from other countries, people in England, when someone says, oh yeah, this guy wants a trial. If someone says, oh, he's really good, people instantly go, oh, he's just going to be another guy that nobody's going to hear of in the next 10 years type thing. But you obviously play Northwood, and you're playing players like Helgeson and all these Watford first team players. At the time, do you even get a moment to soak up that you're playing this team, or do you even know who Watford are at the time?
I had done a little bit of research, of course, knowing that I was going into that game. Again, we didn't know who they were going to play. Again, this was a gifted friendly from Scott Fitzgerald's goal-scoring season from the year before, and because they had famously signed Scott the year before me, and it was kind of one of those things that I at the time, I was a naive American, but I was in a way that worked in my favor because I didn't let those reputations psych me out.
Absolutely.
If I didn't know the players, if I didn't know, again, because I didn't know a lot. I didn't come from a place. America wasn't exactly a great education program for football at the time. You know what I mean? It's a much better place now when it comes to football education. But England actually taught me football. You know what I mean? I had to learn that when I got there. But then again, me being kind of naive in my own right, again, going against a guy like Helgeson, if I would have thought about that a little bit harder, maybe I would have psyched myself out. But I didn't. He's just another guy. And, if I can go out there and compete and match his athleticism and jump with him, and again, he's playing against Northwood, so I'm sure he's not going to be totally up for it if I can stay in his face and do what I'm supposed to do. And that's kind of, what happened. And, Ray Lewington, of course, talks to the coach after and says, we don't have any money to buy anybody. So, we're looking for center backs. And so that was kind of how it all fit.
That's amazing. And then obviously, what was Ray Lewington's first conversation with you? Like, obviously, he'd come to you and said, we want to take you on trial.
Yeah. It was basically that. And through that non-league manager, Dell, that's kind of how I got in touch with them. Again, the first week and a half, I trained with reserve, so I hadn't really seen Ray or the first team too much. But then I got 2 reserve games. Again, fortunately, so I got to kind of show my worth in those 2 weeks. And again, the story goes is that Ray calls me into his office. This is the first time I actually really interact with him, and he says, he says, Jay, I heard you've been doing really well with the reserves. Why don't you come to our last preseason friendly game tomorrow against Real Zaragoza? They are a big Spanish team. They're coming into town. We'll try to get you involved in some capacity. So I'm like, okay, yeah, no problem. I come to the stadium and I'm like my wind-up camera, like ready to take pictures from the bench or like, whatever I'm going to do. I'm thinking I'm maybe get a bench spot or maybe even get to warm up with the team. And I walk into the locker room and on the whiteboard with like Neil Ardley, Neil Cox, like these guys I'm starting. And he never even told me that I was going to play. And I had never even trained with these guys, let alone played with them. So, it was kind of like this whole baptism of fire moment where you kind of have to sink or swim or at least go, holy shit, like, wow, like, what do you do now? Do you blame the coach and get scared? Say, oh, he can't do this to me. Why didn't he tell me? I'm not ready for this. Is that, yes, that's an easy mindset to go to, but for me, it was, I went to the bathroom stall and had a little word with myself, and because I was freaking out a little bit, of course, as you do. And I went into this bathroom stall and kind of put my head in my hands and was like, no, this is actually why, you've been sleeping on an attic floor and playing in the 12th division for the last year plus. You know what I mean? This is the reason you came here. Like, this is the opportunity you've been waiting for, so don't get scared now. You're prepared for this. You've just played against a bunch of reserves for the last couple of weeks and done well. So, why not? Why get out there and try to do the same thing? And sure enough, that's what happened. We ended up playing pretty well against that Real Zaragoza team, and I did enough. Put it that way. Of course, Ray Lewington calls me in his office and he says, "So, what'd you think?" And I said, I think you're an asshole. And we kind of had a laugh, and he said, listen, sometimes, we gotta sink or swim at this level, and sometimes with guys like you, we gotta take chances on. And so that was, that was my test for you today to see if you could go out there and do your job. And he said you did, and he said, I want to offer you a 1-year contract. And that was that. And sure enough, it was a 1-year, 25,000-pound contract as a walk-on, and but for me that was much better than non-league money. So it was a place to start, and certainly, that started the Watford career, and luckily, that ended up being a great first season too, because Sean Dyche got injured. I ended up playing almost 30 games my first year, and really kind of hit the ground running. To my not just my surprise, but just. You never know what you're capable of until you're in a situation where you can. And again, I was allowed the opportunity to do it, and certainly did my best to make the most of it.
Of course, we'll go into that particular first season in a minute, but I just want to ask quickly in that conversation, Ray Lewington, was it? He asked to talk to your agent, and for some reason you couldn't quite give any contacts. About this agent.
That's right. I had to kind of lie when he asked me if I had an agent, because I didn't. And I said, yeah. And there was a guy on my non-league team they used to play for QPR, and I knew he had one. So I was right as I get over there, I call him. I'm just like, who do you got? Like, just give me somebody. And he called his agent, and that was the agent for that deal.
So and then you obviously got your 1-year contract. It's all sort of going well, and then the start of the championship comes, and then what's your initial thoughts? Because this Watford team was written off straight away.
Yeah, again, for me, my focus was just trying to be a part of the team. You know what I mean? I wasn't part of the leadership group yet. I was just trying to be a part of the group. You know what I mean? So for me, it was just, there was a lot of extra training after training. Again, I wanted to get better. I knew I needed to get better. So I was just I was really focusing on trying to improve my game at that time.
Yeah.
I wasn't, no press was asking me anything. You know what I mean? So I just kind of waited in the wings and kind of waited for my opportunities and was trying to be a part of the group and trying to be personable and show who I was. And, working hard in training and playing hard against the first team guys. Doing what I could to felt like not only myself that I feel like I was belonging there, but also to prove yourself to the group to make sure that they think that you belong there. And I think that for me was what that first season was really all about.
Because obviously through that season, I'm sure that as results came, you sort of grew as a team as well. What was the sort of feeling like throughout the season? Did you get more confident, or was there more of a sort of, we're getting towards the playoffs here and we're sort of taking it game by game as opposed to, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, again, 80 famously at the beginning of the season when we were predicted to go down said, in this group, we have enough to get to the Premier League. And we all kind of looked at each other like, what? What's this dude talking about? But again, I think leadership and belief is a growth state. And again, we made it maybe not a belief that in the first game of the season, but by mid-season, he really had us believing in ourselves. He really had us believing in each other. He was a guy that really managed guys properly. He managed ego. He managed the guys that needed to get their tires pumped to the guys that needed an arm around their shoulder to the guy that needed to kick up the back. You know what I mean? He did a great job of making sure that each personality was managed properly. We had a pretty good leadership group from the older players, from Alec Chamberlain to Malky Mackay.
Yeah.
Gav, those guys were good leaders. They did a good job. And then we kind of had these young guns like Ashley Young and, Ben Foster, of course, being a young gun as well. And kind of this really young, raw talent too. In between, you had guys like James Chambers, myself, Jordan Stewart, that just were, workers and guys that were willing to do anything for the team. I think we just had a really good mix.
And then the championship season sort of passed, and we got to the playoffs. Now, can you remember the build up to that playoff final at the Millennium Stadium?
I mean, yeah. Famously, we I think it was 4 days before the game at the Millennium. I think 80 could feel the pressure, and most of us hadn't been in those games before, and I think you could just feel the intensity in the locker room, and the media was there, and they're calling, and all of a sudden we come into training, and he says, "Don't change today, guys. Get on the bus." So we get on the bus, and we're on the bus for like hours. We're like, "Where are we going?" And finally, we started seeing signs for Wales. We're like, Wales? Why are we going to Wales right now? Wales is not for another. That game isn't until this weekend. And so there we are. We go straight into the stadium, and dark Millennium Stadium. We walk out of the middle of the field. We did this thing called the circle. Every Sunday, we would all sit in a circle and talk about what happened in the Saturday game. And it was a real growth thing for us all year round. And that's really where we learned a lot about each other and really had a lot of good conversations, from good to bad to ugly, of each game was different, so therefore each conversation was different. And I think that was one tactic that 80 really got right that year, is just really making sure guys were on the same page, calling each other out when we needed to, encouraging each other when we needed to. So we pull into the stadium, and he brings us out to the center circle, and he puts us all in a big circle, and he gives this amazing talk about how far we've come and how he had predicted, with this group, and had the confidence. And he said, and now, I see you guys have the confidence, and that's all we need going out to Sunday. And he said, at the end of the day, guys, I brought you here because on Sunday when you walk out, you can act like you've been here before. And our whole team just relaxed, and we started to realize how far we had come, and that we were. We had just wiped the floor with Crystal Palace as well. 3-0 aggregate. clean sheets from the back, guys scoring up front. So we had a lot of confidence, and I think that just eased us just enough. So we walked out on Sunday, as you know, against Leeds, and then did the same thing to them. So, again, I think 80 had an amazing ability to really inspire us and to make us believe in ourselves.
So then, obviously, Sunday came, and before the game, in the warm-up, do you sort of look around, or are you more just you're on your game? Because in this sort of situation, it's really easy to like try and soak it up because you feel like, oh, this could never happen again type thing.
I mean, I've always kind of been a soak it up guy, though. I'm someone that always tries to enjoy the moment and make sure that, I'm getting the most out of the experience. And, again, I think that's always made me more excited. It makes me more amped up, when I do take that stance. And, I guess for that game, again, we were so prepared. We were so ready for that game. All of us, from the roles that we played as individuals to what our team responsibilities were as a group, to how we prepared, to the environment we created in the locker room beforehand, to the noise that we created in the tunnel, all that stuff just all played the part. And then again, then somebody's got to put the ball in the net first. And, again, corner kicks happen and and you got to make your runs. And sure enough, I go up and I can see Rob Hulch cheating to the first post because he knows that's where I'm going. And, I just decide I'm not going to go there. I'm going to wrap around. And, of course, Ashley Young whips in an incredible cross. And Malky Mackay is wrestling with Geiger, and the big Goliaths are staying at the back post. So I kind of sneak right in there and thread the needle. And there you go. The last thing I remember was the thud in my head and a roar of a crowd. And that's the memory.
Yeah, of course. And then what I want to ask is, once you'd scored, you obviously, you say that there was a blackout, but was there a time in that celebration where you had anything in your mind where you wanted to, I don't know, run to the corner flag or do something? Or was it just a ball of emotion?
Yeah, no, it was. It was literally as anyone hasn't seen any goals I had, I was never good at the goal celebration. Because, I don't know. I guess I wasn't never, you're up there because you want to score, but you never really plan on it, if you know what I mean. It was kind of one of those things. But then all of a sudden it happens. And, again, I think, because we were so drilled and because, we had gone over, if we score, this is what we're going to do. So, again, I kind of went into that again. It wasn't, again, we were at a team where it wasn't about us as individuals, you know what I mean? And I think that was kind of another example of that is, the ball goes in, I don't remember really the celebration at all. There wasn't much of one. And then I just remember Marlon King with his hands on my face, just saying something to me. And then it was kind of like this whole refocus. And then it was like, okay, back to the line. Let's go. This is our job. What we said when we were going to score, this is what we're going to do. So now we've done that. Let's go do that. So I guess, it was one of those things that I wasn't focused on, getting out of control. It was we were there for a job to do it, and let's get back and make sure we do it.
And then obviously once you'd scored, two others went in, and then we won 3-0, obviously against Leeds, which promoted us to the Premier League. Once that full-time whistle went, what is the emotion going through your head at this point?
Oh man. Well, for me, I mean, it was depth on a lot of different scales. You know what I mean? Like my family was in the stands. A lot of the people and characters that were kind of with me through the non-league journey. There was like 20 or 30 tickets that I had to get for that game. It was just this special moment where all of the journey and all of the things kind of come together finally. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of years there where you're traveling, you're doing stuff on your own, you're believing in yourself, but nobody believes in you, and then all of a sudden you get into this environment where everything goes right, and you're thrust into this whole new place, a new stratosphere of success, and also of what's next. There we were. I was next season. I was going to be a Premier League player, and 2 years earlier, I was playing non-league and as a 23-year-old American that no American had ever heard of.
Of course. And then we move on a couple of weeks. Do you sort of start thinking about the new season and who you may be playing? Obviously, with Man United being the second game, was there any sort of thought going into who you were playing at certain times?
Yeah, of course. And again, I think those things really just bred excitement, though. The Premiership was just, it's such a great thing because you get so excited every week because you're playing against the world's best players and the world's best clubs. So, it's hard not to get excited when you're a Premier League player.
Yeah.
When you're going to Gillingham on a Tuesday night in February, it's not exactly like the best thing in the world. But when you're going to play Stamford Bridge on Saturday against Drogba and all these guys, it's hard not to be like, all right, this is the best. You know what I mean? So, I really enjoyed that Premier League season. As hard as it was mentally, I think, physically to be in those stadiums and on those fields and play against those players for me was incredible fun. It was just incredible privilege.
Absolutely. I just want to take a little quote from, obviously, the Rise and Shine independent film. You said they don't feel sorry for the people in the Premiership for a reason. You have to be the best to stay in the league. Did you feel that pressure that season? Like, did you feel like there was a weight to sort of stay in the league? Or was it more so, like they say, you were more of a Rocky Balboa, you're just trying to hopefully stay in the league, because it appears there wasn't much resource in terms of money going into the club at the time.
Yeah, and I think we were all kind of in the back. We all knew that. They didn't want to make the mistakes that they made, in the early 2000s.
Of course.
And I think, again, you got to take chances on a couple players. And our chances, again, Marlon going down that first or second game was a huge blow for us, because he wasn't just our goal scorer. He was one of our leaders. And I think, the buys we bought in to try to replace him didn't work, and all the other things that needed to happen from a Premier League perspective didn't. Like, we lost, I think, 4 games in the last 5 minutes. We lost, we kept like 9 or 10 clean sheets, but those, I think 8 of them were 0-0 draws. So it's like you got to pick up points somewhere if you're going to be one of those survival teams, and we just didn't do it that year. And again, part of it was because we didn't have the depth of squad, and I think and part of it was just because our chances we didn't take.
Do you feel like once you'd sort of got into a certain amount of games, was there a sort of a feeling in the squad where you're like, this is not happening this season, or are you all still not motivated as such, because you can always stay motivated in the Premier League, but sort of was there any moment in your mind where you thought, this is just not it this season?
I mean, not really, not until the end. I mean, you can if you get on a little win streak there, you could pick up points quite quickly.
Yeah.
For teams that are down, near the relegation zone. So I don't think you lose that much hope, but I think probably as we got to the last quarter of the season and we were way down there, and it didn't look like we were going to get much better. I mean, you never give up by any means, but I think we know how hard that was to get out of that.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's almost, the numbers don't lie and history doesn't lie. Teams that have this many points at this time of the year don't go on.
There's nowhere to hide either.
So again, that's just, that's just reality. And I think we had dug ourselves too big a hole.
Yeah. But despite being bottom of the league, you had some particular sort of moments, obviously over your time at Watford, including sort of like defensive contributions. There's one particular one I remember is you sort of like backheeling it over the goal at Vicarage Road, and the fans. Yeah, it was just really good.
That was Tottenham at home.
Yeah. That was brilliant. And then you
I don't know where I just closed my eyes. Flicked my back heel, but thankfully it worked.
And then you obviously chipped in with a couple of goals as well. Over your sort of spell at Watford, what are the shining lights other than the playoff final for you?
I think, of course, my relationship with the fans. I have always had a really good connection with them. Again, I some of my greatest memories of like, you know, the parking lot down just from the stadium, that walk up the lane, you know, to say hi to the fans, and that kind of like tradition of like getting ready to calm before the storm prep kind of thing was a kind of a special moment for me always. So that I think I always hold in great memory. I think my first goal against Crew, my first year in the championship, was probably one that's up there like as a milestone. You know, when you score your first professional goal, I think is a pretty cool thing. That Premier League season, again, I was just really enjoyable. As much as, you know, you're not winning every week, it's just, you know, playing against and with the best players in the world again was something that I really hold fondly. You know what I mean? And I think again, Watford really provided me those opportunities.
And obviously, it's always good, especially for yourself, to have a bit of perspective. You were playing in the Premier League against players like Didier Drogba, Cristiano Ronaldo. Yet, like you say, seasons ago, you were in the 12th division, sort of trying to find a way to sort of get to that place. So to even achieve that just puts a whole new meaning on sort of trying to prove yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. And then I think, you know, to come from those environments and then kind of move into a captaincy role, I think was also something that was really something I look back on as a privilege and something that I can be proud of. You know, to be an American, to come into that environment, to be accepted, and then to go and lead was for me an incredible process of leadership. What I had to learn to lead and what that looks like as a pro, and how you as a player should always grow into things and try to evolve. And I think, you know, I've always really relished that role of trying to improve and trying to get better and, you know, making the most of things. And I guess, you know, as I grew into a leadership role at Watford, I think, again, a lot of those things fit. After the Premiership season, I decided to stay. And then again, 80 said, you know, I'd most likely be captain. So again, for me, it was about the role, you know what I mean? And about the relationship. And I think that for me is also something that you can be proud of.
Of course. And like you've just touched upon, Jay from the USA became captain. And how did your sort of relationships develop with players when you became captain? Do you feel like some relationships changed for the better when you took that leadership role, as it were?
I mean, I think so. You know, when you're a captain, you do have to kind of try to relate a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, you do have to create those relationships, those connections. You got to be the communicator. You got to be the link between the manager and the players, the club administrators and the coach, and then you're the community and the fans. And all of that stuff is all equally important to the holistic wheel of leadership. And you know, those things need to be learned. You know, again, there's a lot of time management. There's a lot of mental capacity that you have to have time for and energy for. Again, extra conversations, extra engagement, extra media. You know, these are all things that drain on you mentally. There was a time in the beginning where I had the energy for it. I think as we started to lose and our second to go straight back up, you know, that was starting to drain on me because I was trying to carry performances of everybody because I didn't really know as a captain how to do that yet.
Cool.
And that's when it kind of like going into the playoffs that next year against Hull, he took the captain. 80 took the captaincy off me because he thought it was too heavy, and he was probably right. In all honesty, because my performances weren't doing great, and that's one thing that I learned as I got older is like if you're not taking your own performances and making that the number one priority, then you can't. It's hard to lead anyway because if you're playing like shit, no one wants to play with you.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely,
or listen to you. So, you know, again, I learned that, and again, that wasn't an easy learning environment, but it was certainly something that, as I finished my career, I really appreciated.
Of course, and I wanted to touch upon there, in terms of like being a captain as well. You say obviously at the start, not many people would have asked any words from you particularly, but as a captain, there must have been sort of a shine, more of a shining light on you. That they sort of when something's not going well or something's going great, they always turn to the captain. How did you sort of take on that role as well?
Well, first, media is also a learned thing. You know what I mean? Like, the more interviews you do, the more comfortable you become, and the more words that you have to express, the more you start to do it. So, I think that was part of the learning curve, and then I think, you talk about relationships, and then from there you just start to learn about how to manage people and what people need, to make the most of their own performances. Again, some guys need an arm around their shoulder, or some guys need a nice pump up. Some guys need a little bit of a criticism if they take a bad touch. Like, come on, get your, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm in. You know what I mean? So that part of it is management too. So that's kind of, as I started to learn the role, that was one of the things I really had to try to practice a little bit more.
Of course, and I just want to sort of touch upon a little bit in the Premier League again. Do you feel like when results are not going well, was there any time where it spilled over in the changing room, as in like everyone's sort of frustrated and you're sort of like there's only so many things to like not pass blame as such, but you're like frustrated? Is there any times that it sort of spill over?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to dwell on frustration. There are times that you're going to get frustrated. There are times where, there's heated things. Again, whether that's your relationship with the manager, whether that's your relationship with other players. Because there's a lot of testosterone in those rooms. There's a lot of people that are trying to fight for their survival or their new contract, and it gets quite competitive. And again, there's a management system within that too, because it is so cutthroat up at the top of the leagues and at that level of professionalism. So I think all those factors play into the mood of the room, and then when you lose, that plays in because you're not getting your win bonuses. You're not, again, the guys that aren't starting aren't playing. And, again, this starts to add to the stress.
Puts more strain on it.
Bottom of the table, and then you start to think about your contract when you get relegated. And it starts, again, it all adds up. And again, and then you haven't scored an away goal in months. And, you know what I mean? Like, all those types of things for that season. But then again, I think, we were Watford, and we kind of, at the time, didn't have a big budget. We couldn't buy big players that were going to try to keep us up. So I think we all kind of just understood. Keep trying your best and do all that. But, we still understood where we were.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch on something in particular as well, just before you left Watford. Was it an injury that you scratched your eye, was it?
Yeah, I had a full corneal transplant.
Wow.
Just six months before the World Cup. I wore contacts at the time. Got a piece of dirt stuck under my contact. Cut my cornea. My cornea got infected, and within 36 hours, I lost 70% of my eye tissue in my right eye to a really bad infection. And I had to get my full window, the front of my eye, replaced by an organ donor. And yes, and I had to do I did a full transplant surgery. I played with a stitch in my eye for 2.5 months. And I had to sit in the dark for the first month just to let it heal. So I just sat in my apartment in London for almost a month, just in the dark, because because you couldn't look at laptops, you couldn't look at computers, you couldn't go outside, because anytime that light would hit your eye, it would make it all like angry. And then that would impede the healing process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was just this crazy time, and I just played all summer for the Confederations Cup. We beat Spain.
Yeah.
I was in the team that did that. We lost to Brazil in the Confederations Cup final. Again, we made it to a cup final for the U.S. team. I had earned my way into the starting lineup. I was ready for that World Cup and to do real well for Watford that year. And sure enough, like, before I knew it, I didn't know if I'd ever even play again.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems crazy to me. Like, obviously, it seems like there was a lot of learning curves for you. Was there sort of any time where, how do I put it? It's more so, there's many learning curves in football for yourself, including injuries and things like that. Do you feel like you were prepared? Because obviously, you were just a normal guy that had gone in to play to the Premier League. Do you feel like you were ready for these sort of obstacles that came your way?
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think I've always been someone to put myself into adversity's way. You know what I mean? I think adversities are guaranteed to happen. It's just the people that I expect them. You know what I mean? And I knew my journey. I'd been through a lot of adversity already. So, again, I guess the good thing about adversity is when you've been through it and then it happens again, you're not that surprised.
Yeah.
And I think you learn the more adversity you have in your life, the more you realize how to deal with it and how to manage it and all that kind of stuff. So, again, I had a lot of that in my story before. And so when new adversities hit, I knew where to go. I knew how to get through it. I knew how to keep a positive mindset. Because I knew that in the previous past, when I had done that, most things have worked out just fine. And so I think, again, that's an attitude that has been built through the previous adversity, but definitely something that I certainly have built and wanted to continue to understand throughout my story.
Yeah, of course. And then you left Watford and you went on to new pastures, obviously in Vancouver Whitecaps. What brought the move about? Was it just a case of a new scenery, sort of wanting to move back towards the MLS?
Yeah, and again, I because I had never played in the States, I had never played, in the MLS. I was 30 years old. I wanted to kind of, again, I didn't want to be the dude that comes back to the American League as like a 36-year-old year guy. You know what I mean? I just wanted, again, I'm someone that wasn't supposed to be there, so I wanted to get the most experience and out of the whole career as I could. I hadn't played near my friends and family, so I wanted to kind of come back to this region. They offered me a unique opportunity in Vancouver to be the first signing of their franchise in the MLS. So, to have a team to be built around you was for me, like, again, another great privilege of opportunity. And Vancouver was an incredible place from like a lifestyle perspective. So all those pieces kind of fit.
Yeah.
And it just allowed me to kind of really create a new opportunity for myself. And Malky was the manager at the club, and our relationship was just different. We didn't not like each other. It was just when you go from a center half and a roommate to a manager, it just sometimes can start to create a different hierarchy. And again, and a rightfully so hierarchy. You know what I mean? But it just made the relationship a little bit different. So again, I think at that crossroads, I don't know. I don't even know if Malky would have signed me. To be honest, I don't know, but. We weren't there, and we had both discussed that and figured I was going to be moving on anyway. So again, we finished amicably, and it was the right time to go.
Yeah, of course. And then you moved back. It must have been a really good feeling to obviously move back. Initially at the start, Chicago Fire not obviously giving you that opportunity, and you're able to move back and play in the MLS as a more established player than what you were obviously at the start.
Yeah, and again, I was ready for that leadership role. Again, it wasn't that first season in Vancouver wasn't easy though. That actually almost tested that was one of my biggest tests in leadership. Was again, we didn't win an away game the whole season.
Wow.
So and I just started playing on turf, so I had 3 groin injuries almost back to back to back. So I missed almost over a third of the season. Again, it's hard to lead when you're sitting on the bench with a groin injury. So that was kind of hard for me and a leadership perspective because A, I wasn't out there, and B, I'm talking to the media every day about how you can't win a game away from home. So those types of things weren't easy that first year. But just like anything, I had learned a lot from 80 and the Malkys and Gavin's in front of me, and I just switched gears back into like, well, how did those guys lead? How can I mix this up? And I started to again, communicate a little bit more, empower some of the younger players, and really try to use my leadership skills in a different way that I hadn't really tried to do it. Because the MLS at the time was different. There was a lot more a range of ages, and you play a top championship in England. Everyone's good. Everyone's got their talent. Everyone's come from good places. Everyone makes money. Again, it wasn't. There's different things to manage. But in the MLS, you got guys making $40,000 and guys making $500,000. So it's like it's this thing that's a bit weird, and so that's kind of start to manage. And then you got travel, and you're flying 5 hours.
Yes,
for an away game. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to manage travel now, and you got to manage that kind of physical stuff, and it just became a little bit different. And not to say that it wasn't a challenge, and that's what I like, but it was definitely something I had to get used to coming back to the MLS.
Did you feel sort of at the age of 30, you'd obviously had a few groin injuries. Was there any point in that time where you thought, look, I'm getting a bit older now, maybe this is it, like I may have to retire here before you're obviously the season after?
Yeah, there was thoughts. Again, I ruptured my Achilles in my third season.
Yeah,
and it was a tough one, mainly because that's I'm playing on turf again. I was not really at the state of like. I came back, and it's still they call the Achilles the career killers because it's hard to get that explosiveness back, and when you're in the back and you have to make tackles and you gotta run with the fastest players in the world, like it's hard. And it started to kind of show a little bit. Again, because you're older, you can read the game quicker, you can use your voice and communicate better and organize the guys in front of you. So I got away with it, definitely. But I definitely felt physically I was getting to the end of the rope, for sure.
And then obviously in 2012, you were named as an MLS All-Star, which must have been a great achievement for yourself, considering being an American, getting to play Chelsea as well.
Not to mention play them, but we beat them.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as an all-star team. But again, that was an amazing season. Again, I was healthy. I felt good, and I got to. I mean, that all-star team. I got to play with. It was me, Landon Donovan, David Beckham, Thierry Henry.
Wow.
All these guys that were incredible players. So I got to share field with them and contribute. And it ended up our center half that was the third guy got a concussion. So in the middle of the game, so I ended up having to play the whole 90 minutes of the All-Star game and a couple saves at the end. And, it ended up being an awesome game to be a part of, because I would think I was the only one that played the whole game. So there was a bit of press around it. So it's nice to be not only recognized by your peers and the fans to get you into those environments to say you are one of the better players, but when you perform when everyone's watching, it's always nice. And those are the types of occasions I think we all, really appreciate and I try to make the most of. And, thankfully in my career, in those big opportunities, I've generally been able to do that. And again, I think that starts with a lot of preparation and a confidence to step into the room when called upon, but also to be ready for it, because, these are the things that you visualized and you've kind of made happen. And when that happens, you appreciate that opportunity. You don't get scared of it.
That obviously is something you called in a particular talk, one of your sunny days. And did you now looking back on them, do you feel like you had more sunny days in your career?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so. And that's what I would have hoped for.
Of course.
I think when you do your best and you get better and you communicate and you put yourself on the line and take chances and manage risk and learn to grow. I think generally more than not, you will see sunny days. And again, when you keep an outlook to understand that the opportunities that were in front of us, we should be appreciative of. I think that also helps create the energy. And so I was always able to do that because I was never supposed to be there. Once you're there and you're in the room, you never want to give that up because how hard it is to get there. Because especially when you do it the hard way, like I had to do. I think again, all those days were great because I wake up with a smile on my face, knowing that I'm doing what I set out to do, and I got to be one of those few that gets to live their dream.
Absolutely. And there's in my talks I've had before with other players, it's quite funny. They play for a particular team, and there's an analogy that manager said to them is that their team was the elephant in the tree. They don't know how the elephant got there, but they're up there and they're not going to go anywhere. So it's quite a great analogy.
It is, yeah. Try to get him down. That's going to be hard.
Yeah, of course. And then I want to move on to your international career. Obviously, at the age of 27, you were able to play for your country, USA, and you were actually quite successful as well, winning obviously the Gold Cup and playing in the World Cup in 2010, which I look back on in not fond memories of how England played, but it was a good World Cup. Can you summarise your time playing in the World Cup, because you obviously finished top and you got to play against players like Messi and Rooney. Obviously Rooney had come off a great season that time.
Yeah, and that was the big game in Group C for us that year. Was USA England was the first game of the group, so that was the spotlight game. And again, I had just come off my eye injury, so there was some crazy stuff going on with my eye. I'm playing against Wayne Rooney, who just got Premier League Player of the Year, so arguably that's the best player in the world. So again, I had a lot of pressure, and that was going to be my role because we knew that they were most likely going to start him and ML Heskey up front. So the guy that I played with, a guy named Oguchi Aniewu for the national team, he was a big guy. So he was 6'4". He could wrestle with Heskey, and then I knew that I had to kind of chase Wayne around and be the quicker, shorter, faster guy that was kind of going to compete with him. So again, I'm always one that likes to test reputations. Again, I wanted those opportunities because, the world thinks he's going to beat me. And if he does, no one's going to be surprised. But at the end of the day, if I can come in with a mentality that says, I'm going to test that reputation. If he's the best player in the world, he's going to have to prove it. And I'm not going to give him an inch. And I'm not going to let him, let his competitive edge beat mine. And I can disrupt his rhythm. I can affect his first touch. I can beat him in the air. You know what I mean? There's ways I can still manipulate him. And that was kind of the preparation. We closed the space from the center mids. We did a very defensive mid type shutdown system in the middle of the field because he liked to come kind of in the middle of the field and get it. And so we cut down that space a lot and really didn't give him a chance to play. And it just carried on through. And we really were able to negate him. And that set us off. Of course, Wayne, he didn't have the greatest game, but Robert Green didn't either. So he kind of helped us get that first goal that we needed. And, again, we had a couple of good chances. So I don't think that the result was that unfair at a 1-1. But I think, again, it got us off to a good start. And it got me a lot of confidence to say that I deserve to be there.
I want to ask about your sort of perspective on that game, because after that game, when that goal went in, obviously what happened with Robert Green, people it seemed a little bit like they were taking it away from you, like the way you'd obviously got the result out of England, and it should have been America have done well against England as opposed to, oh no, Robert Green's dropped it. And then there's this whole thing around like how good the football was. Do you feel like the sort of hard work you'd put in had not been rewarded as such after the game, or do you feel like it was still warranted?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're in those things, especially with group stage, it's just about the points. Nobody really cares. It's just about at the end of the day, people can say what they want, but we got a point, and that was our goal. And again, if we thought that if we could get a point from England, we'd have a good chance against Algeria and Slovenia to get out of the group. And again, that's always the goal too, is to get out of it. It's to win it is a bonus. But again, the whole idea is let's get out of the group. How do we do that? First, let's see if we can pick up at least a point against England. So we did that. The job was done. Again, we took a lot of confidence into that next game and against Slovenia, and again, it really got us off on the right foot.
Yeah, they had good teams as well, Algeria and Slovenia. So to finish top was obviously a good achievement for you guys as a team. And I watched the video when you'd, I think it was the last game, and you'd finished top of the group, and everyone's obviously in the room, and you're all celebrating. Can you sort of remember that? And what was it like being in that squad at the time?
Yeah, I mean, those types of things are the best things what you remember most. You know what I mean? And again, my tongue got split in the 3rd minute off an elbow, and so I had half a tongue for 87 minutes, and, because they had to stitch it, and I couldn't. They didn't have enough time to stitch it to take me off. So, and I wasn't about to come off. So
No.
I was just like, I'll just spit blood for 87 minutes, and so again, I'm getting my tongue stitched up, so my tongue's all swollen in my mouth. And,
wow.
The locker room's going crazy, and Bill Clinton comes in with the cooler full of Budweisers and starts passing them out to the guys.
Wow.
We're slamming beers with the president and like with our shirts off and stuff, and I can't even. Like, I didn't say talking like this. I couldn't talk because my mouth is so swollen. But yeah, that was it. Like, we're all just like, and again, we won it in the 92nd minute after a 0-0 game. And, the last kick of the game, last bastion, extra time, again, if we would have drawn, I think we still would have got through. But if we knew that if we won, we'd win the group. And so we knew we had won, and, to win our group for the first time, that's a big deal. So, all those pieces had fit. So that celebration was certainly one for the memory books.
It was a really good team as well. Like with the players you had with like Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, and other players in that team. I think people sort of maybe not underestimated America, but it was definitely a good team, and I don't think like it was given enough, as in terms of how much people looked at that American team and realised how much quality was in it.
Yeah, and I think that team had a lot of confidence in itself.
Yeah.
And because we knew we were good players, and we knew we loved playing with each other. That's teamwork 101. If you get a group of guys that really love playing with each other, they're going to go and win a lot of games, and that's what we did. And again, you look at that 2-year run of Confederate beating Spain, snapping their 35-win game streak to going 2-0 up against Brazil in a Confederations Cup final, end up losing 3-2, but getting to that level and then moving into a World Cup, winning a group, almost beating Ghana as well to get out of the round of 16, going to extra time. You know what I mean? That kind of team was one of the best that we've ever had. So, those are the moments that you can be proud of.
And then July 2014 came. What were the emotions when you retired? And do you feel like that was the right point in your career to say, but right, it's time to call it a day?
I think so. I ruptured a second tendon in my same ankle as my Achilles.
Yeah.
So I came back. I had done 6 months of really intense workout to get my Achilles back to working order, and got a new contract with the Whitecaps for 1 more year. And 3 months into the new season, I go up for a header, a new pop in the same ankle, and I ruptured a second tendon off my foot. So I didn't have the mental capacity to do it again. I had done enough to and again, I was 34, so I wasn't getting any faster, and I wasn't. And with the second tendon, I was definitely not getting any faster or any better. So, I think when you see the writing on the wall, I wasn't someone that was not willing to walk away or wanted to hang on because I didn't have anything else to do. No. I was someone that, again, had a lot of other interests, and I have a lot of other hobbies and things like that. And I was ready because if I can't go out there and make the tackles, why do I want to go out there?
Absolutely.
To make money? That was the only thing. So again, it was never about money for me. So for me, it was like, if I can't make the play, I'm happy to sit here and be a fan. And that was kind of where it came down. And I remember sitting and training when I had decided to call it. I was rehabbing, and I was running up this hill and looking back on the players and playing 5v5 in a small-sided game, and 22-year-old kids like killing each other and sliding around. And I just looked down and I looked at the physio, and I looked down at the guys again, and I just looked at the physio again, and I'm like, I think I'm done. I'm pretty sure I'm done. I don't think I can do this anymore. And so we kind of had a quick chat, and then I went. There's beaches here in Vancouver, and after training, I went and kind of had like a real kind of moment, a beach walk to really kind of process it all. And the answers were just right there, and it was just you get to that end, and you're like, thank you. I'm ready to go. And again, because I don't have anything left to give to be the player that I want to be. I can go out there and make mistakes or make tackles that I used to, or not make tackles that I used to make. But that wasn't me. I'm not, if I can't go out there and do what I'm supposed to do at the highest level, then I'm not doing it.
I'll go on to your conference after that. But your life experience before obviously playing professional football, do you feel like that gave you that sort of that outlook on I've done enough in my career to say, right, that's it for me. I don't want to sort of run myself into the ground just to be that I don't want to be that player that everyone looks back on and says, oh yeah, he played till like he was 38 and he was done before that type thing.
Yeah, and that definitely fed my fire, to stop. Again, it was never my intention to, keep going or to not be the player or the person that I once was or always have been, as far as like who I wanted to be and to represent myself the most. And again, I had a lot of other interests. I had just again this whole idea of what it's supposed to feel like. And when you get to the end of your career, it doesn't feel like it should sometimes. And then you're like, okay, I think it's time. And those are little the answers that really you look for. Some people never find them, and they're always confused on whether they should stop playing or not. And thankfully, that didn't really happen to me. Again, injury helped that. I knew that I couldn't go out there physically and do what I needed to do, and that was a big factor.
Yeah. And you obviously got suited and booted up that day when you did your conference, and you went into obviously that day and you told everybody you'd retired. What did you sort of do that day? Was there anything different about that day that you did, or what was it? Just that conference that day that you did?
I think again it was an emotional day because of all the reasons.
You could see that as well.
That again, when you look back, and I'm not really one that likes to look back per se, but on days like that you do. And you appreciate everything that you were able to do. And for me, again, my journey was so much longer than most, and so much different. And again, I always loved that about the story, and I think people always love that about my story too. Yeah. And again, that relationship from a professional soccer player level was over. And again, that's emotional, but it's also something that, again, at that time, you really look back and go, wow. I really have come a long way. I really have done a lot and achieved a lot and been through a lot and faced a ton of adversity. And this is where I am. So that kind of hit me hard on that day. But, again, we all know those days are going to come. So when they come, again, just like anything, I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, of course. So sort of my last few questions. Have you got any personal memorabilia that you've kept from your career?
Yeah, I have a lot of jerseys. I've Fernando Torres. I have Pirlo. I have a couple other really
nice.
Amazing players. Some other cool things, like when we go to the World Cup, you stop at the White House and you visit the president on the way. So we got to do like a White House tour and meet Obama, and there's just cool with our USA badge and it says White House visit, blah blah blah. Like it's a cool commemorative coat we all got to wear. Stuff like that, where you get these experiences that are so rare and so unique and so special. So I think those types of things, for me, on a memorabilia side, are about as high as you get.
Absolutely, with players like Pirlo as well, just amazing. And then, who would you say your closest friends were in football? Obviously, you had Kieran, who was at the very start of your journey.
I would say, Ben Foster, Adrian Mariappa, those are the guys that I'm in contact with. From the U.S. group, Tim Howard, Carlos Bocanegra, Stu Holden, guys like that. I'm still recently in touch with quite a bit. We're all in kind of like these WhatsApp groups and stuff.
Nice.
So, those bonds don't really go away. You don't see the guys like you used to, but, the banter's still there. So that's what you want.
And you can actually sort of talk to these players, particularly in sort of Mariappa, Foster and Tim Howard. They've obviously had the same experience as you have, obviously playing in the Premier League. And you can obviously all look at that together, even though you sort of may not see each other a lot.
Yeah, and I think when you share the field in those moments with people, that bond becomes very strong, and that
Yeah.
bond never leaves because you've achieved things together. You've done things together that most people would only dream of. So I think you hold on to those things as in special places, and I think you always appreciate that about each other too, as far as teammates and those types of relationships are concerned.
Yeah, of course. My last question is about Rise and Shine. Obviously, where it helps sort of, is it younger people of a similar age to sort of myself and younger in America? Could you sort of explain what the work what is being done from that was made by yourself and obviously the other founders?
Yeah, well, again, Rise and Shine was a documentary film made about my story in 2011. So after the World Cup, these filmmakers made a story about it and went to Kickstarter, and the passionate soccer community raised $223,000 in 70 days to turn my story into a documentary film called Rise and Shine, the Jay DeMerit story. So, for me, that was my empowerment moment, that my story was much bigger than me, and when you have thousands of donors that I don't even know that are giving their hard-earned money on my behalf so that that story can be told, you better believe you should go tell it. And so that was my empowerment moment, to take Rise and Shine and turn it into a vehicle of belief and hope and that things like my story can happen. And so that for me was always, how do I do this now? So within that, I started a youth program, called Rise and Shine. It's a teenage program that mixes professional mentorship for mentors in all walks of life, from designers to chefs to entrepreneurs. And we surround these kids with high performance mindset people. I run right now, the physical program is up in the mountains in British Columbia, where I live right now. And the kids camp outside. We do bonfires with leadership talks and TED Talk type environments. And then we train twice a day. And I fly in you have to play. To be a coach, you have to play 1 year of professional soccer in somewhere in the world. So the coaches of the sport actually are the pros in that too. So the pros teach, and then in the rest, it's just this like really interactive program of mentorship in high professions of other things. Because teenagers, that they're being pigeonholed to think that they have to be one thing now. If you're 9 years old and you're good at football, you sign for Aston Villa. You think you're going to be Wayne Rooney. And at 17, you're spit out of the system, and you don't really have a future. You don't really have any skills.
Yes.
And then now you have mental health problems and no confidence. And so that's what I've seen. I've seen this through all sports and music and art programs, because we've single lane these kids. And my goal with the program was to kill that. Was to say, no, this isn't about that. You live a holistic life, like I had to do. I had 9 jobs. I went to school. I had a degree in design, all before I turned pro. But I can tell you, I was a much better soccer player as a professional because I had those other life skills built within me. And even though I didn't turn pro until I was 23, I had this education and this life model built within from my experience of doing a bunch of other things and having other skills and knowing how to cook for myself and knowing how to communicate and, having a support system. And all those things allowed me to create my own life. And not mental health problems. You know what I mean? I knew who I was. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I was capable of because I had experience to show me that. And I found that was a big problem in youth development these days, not only working for clubs, high performance programs, and seeing the products of these systems going, what's that kid doing at 18? They're coming to me going, Jay, what am I supposed to do? Where should I go to work? What should I go to school for? And I'm like, you're 17, 18 years old. You don't know? And I got really surprised, and I got really almost upset about the whole thing. So that's when I empowered myself through Rise and Shine to start to create the program and use the story as a way that we can create a holistic learning environment for kids. And so I do that as we're in year 5. And now this year I'm actually creating with EA, Electronic Arts, that create FIFA. We're creating a learning game called Rise and Shine. It's an app that's going to gamify learning for kids and like master class type online lessons, but with like TikTok challenges for kids, and you get points by participating in all these forms of learning to unlock prizes like Zoom calls with celebrities, cool signed memorabilia, experiences with pros, and really unique prizes that the kids actually earn by participating in all the online content. So I'm building that right now, and then we're going to turn that into the Rise and Shine digital program. So and then lastly, with the Rise and Shine, we have a charity, and the charity pays for kids to come to camp that wouldn't necessarily come otherwise. So again, we've created this kind of whole community wheel called Rise and Shine, and it's all based on that. It's a community that cares for each other, that supports each other, that believes in the big dream idea and the support system that requires to achieve that. And so we achieve that through a music festival that we run the fundraisers to raise money to send the kids. So that's for the adults, and then we have the kid program that again, we teach kids in a holistic way to be whatever they want to be, not sports people, to be good people and to be capable humans, because we lose that in youth development. We're trying to tell 14-year-olds they have to be LeBron James, and then we're wondering why they have mental health problems when at 19 they're told they're not. Well, we've just told them their whole lives that they're going to be something that they're not, instead of preparing them to be something that they actually are. And because the numbers don't lie, 99 point something don't make it. So let's be honest. Why don't we create a program for them instead of the 1% that do?
That's brilliant. Especially, I know it's obviously a thing in America, but that sounds like something that is massively needed in England as well. I think we all sort of... I work in education as well, but there's many sort of people I went to school with that are sort of like 17, 18, even 16, and they're all looking and going, well, what do I want to do? Like, I don't even know what I want for my breakfast in the morning type thing.
Yeah.
So to...
Yeah, no, it's true. And again, there's reasons for that. It's not because they're dumb. It's just because they don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, that's the idea. Is just to flip the script and maybe get creative more with the curriculum side. Again, use technology and tell kids to use their devices instead of tell them to get off their phones, because unfortunately,
you can't stop them.
there isn't a teenager in the world that hasn't been built from this thing in their hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on, Jay. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully I'll be able to look more into Rise and Shine, and I will leave a link to the independent film. Obviously, hopefully it will still be up on YouTube, but I'll leave a link for that.
The YouTube channel is up now. We got the rights back, so now it's free for anyone to watch the YouTube. It's the bio. It's in my Instagram bio. The link, the short link on my bio on my Instagram page is the link to the movie.
So if you want to obviously go and watch that, you can go and look in Jay's social media, but also I'll leave a link as well. If you'd like to see more of what Jay's got in store in terms of Rise and Shine, but also anything else, Jay DeMerit, please go and follow him on social media. Your Instagram, what would that be?
It's at D6Merit. At D6Merit is my social media, and there's a lot of really cool things going on. So always pleasure to come and talk shop and talk some give some Hornet love, and so thanks a lot, Sam, for having me.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.